feed from the International Space Station. You know, what little part of the Earth they actually show you, as they want to cover it up, it seems. But what little bit you can see, it doesn't appear that those clouds are morphing. Almost looks like those clouds are just staying perfectly still. I don't see them changing. Funny, here on the ground, I can look up in the sky and I can see in real time the clouds change and morph. But when you look downward at the sky, the clouds stay the same for some strange reason. And you don't see any satellites floating around out there either. No man-made satellites or no satellite debris. Supposedly there's like over 2,000 man-made satellites that are floating around out there, but you can watch all 4 hours, you're not going to see one. They don't even bump into not one satellite in the entire 4 hours. And you don't see any space debris either. Apparently there's a bunch of old satellites that are no longer working up there, and a bunch of like rocks and crap and just space shit that's supposedly floating up there, but we don't see any of it. And it's pretty cool, you know, that those astronauts can be out there floating around and they don't get hit by any of that space debris. I mean, that space debris would be traveling at thousands of miles an hour. Be like the equivalent of like, you know, high velocity bullets hitting you. But luckily the spacemen are never hit by any of the debris. Alright, so let's recap. The clouds don't move. We don't see any satellites out there floating around. And you know what else we don't see? We don't see any airplanes. Supposedly, there are thousands and thousands of flights every single day. Flights all over the supposed globe, right? So how come we don't even see not one little airplane going by? Sure, the airplane would be small, but shouldn't we at least see a silver speck reflecting some sunlight? I mean, is it entirely impossible to see all the airplanes? Are you telling me out of all the flights taking place that day, we don't see not one airplane flying above the clouds, reflecting some sunlight? Not one? Interesting. So they say the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour down there. Is it really? It looks more like a computer image that they're just dragging along every little bit. They just kind of drag it along like every few seconds to make it look like there's some rotation. Yeah, but we don't get to see a ball rotating. You don't get to see the full ball rotating. No. You don't get to see that. You just get to see this little part of it, and then they block most of your view with these instruments.
I wanted to show you something that I found very interesting, especially if this is a live tracker just like NASA tells us it is. If you go onto your computer and you change the date or time, we'll change it. It's about 1:40 right now, so we'll change it to 2:40. We'll change it an hour. Look what happens. The ISS jumped over here. It's now above South America. Let's check the other one. Yep. Right over here above South America, where it totally shouldn't be, unless I can manipulate space-time somehow. Or I guess the other alternative is it's not actually a live tracker and it's not tracking anything. It's just kind of showing you where it should be, which means it's fake. It's not real.
And I want you to look down at that city and try to find a football field. The reason I say find a football field is because a football field is how big NASA says the space station is. I have an image of that in a second. But this is 4 different cities, and there are schools down there with football fields and soccer fields on them. So how hard are they to see? Because people say they look up and they see the space station flying overhead. Well, this is 5 miles high, about maybe 6 tops, but 5 miles high, looking down at a city trying to find a football field. Because that's how big the space station is supposed to be. So now, let's look at the space station for a second, compared to the space shuttle, some other satellites that they say are up there. But the International Space Station there has those big 8 solar panel arrays right there. You can see them like wings. Remember that, because they say that the space station is the same size as a football field, which we just tried to find. But this is how big it would look if it was 50 times farther away. See those little 8 little panel arrays in the middle of that white box, that mosquito? That's how big the space station would look from the ground, because it's 50 times farther away. If it's 100 yards across at 5 miles, it's 50 times farther away when it's orbiting at 250 miles, which means it's 50 times smaller, which is 2 yards. It's the size of a go-kart sitting on that football field. You can't even see the football field. So consider that when they say they see it fly over. Here's the second thing I want to point out. Anytime you go to the space station and you look at the live feed, which I just did 5 minutes ago, and I got this picture of it flying over Japan, look out the front window, that live feed camera, and you see the clouds. Now this is supposed to be live. If it's real, then it's live. And it shows you on the map exactly where it was at that time. This was not even just a few minutes ago. Look at that position and look at those clouds. They have another camera always running out the side, and it also shows cloud cover that you can barely see the water. So go to NASA's website, go to the ISS live feed. If it's up, it always says it's down for something. But if you can catch it and recognize where it is, then you need to immediately go to a weather satellite. Because let me show you what I found. So look at this picture, all the clouds, and then look out the front window. You see all those clouds. And then take a good look at the position on the left. It's just to the east of those little islands on the south end of Japan. And then we go to a live weather satellite, look at the exact same position, and what do we see? Wow, there's no clouds. I zoomed in a little bit more, and I actually marked the spot where they said it was. And you'll see that there is no cloud cover according to the official satellite map of the weather, but there are cloud cover there. There is cloud cover, and it's completely socked in according to the official live ISS feed. So that's just one other way to show that when they're telling you they're giving you live footage, they're not.